Tonight, a major irrigation project in our province will soon be underway, with hesitation from some. Also, another round of violence in a northern Saskatchewan community as leaders say they're working on changes for the better. Plus, she's been Irish dancing since she was 5. Now she's headed to an international championship across the pond.
This is CBC Saskatchewan News.
It is Friday, March 15th, and the CBC Saskatchewan News starts right now. I'm Ethan Williams, in for Sam McKeag. Thanks for joining us tonight. The provincial government is moving forward with a large-scale irrigation project. It involves using water from Lake Diefenbaker, but as Alexander Kwan reports, not everyone is happy about it.
Saskatchewan is moving forward with a plan to expand irrigation in the province. Once it's finished, more water will be available for farmers, allowing an additional 364 square kilometers to be irrigated. Despite a $1.15 billion price tag, this is just the first stage of the Lake Diefenbaker irrigation project. And for Premier Scott Moe, it's something worth celebrating.
In addition to just being used for agricultural irrigation and increasing the value of the crops we're producing, it's also going to provide the opportunity as we build out channels for water security for our municipalities.
The Premier says the province and agricultural producers will share the project's hefty cost. As for whether the federal government will lend a hand,
it doesn't look like that's coming through, but we'll continue to work with our federal government so that they could be a partner in this space, but we need to start moving on it.
The president of the Saskatchewan Association of Rural Municipalities says its members are optimistic.
We'd be wanting to sit in on some of the conversation to see what the costs actually are, but we are definitely a strong proponent of the federal government putting in a share.
But one group that's not happy about the plan is the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations. Chief Bobby Cameron says he's deeply troubled by what he calls a lack of meaningful consultation. In a statement, Cameron said, quote, "Our inherent and treaty rights must be respected, and First Nations must be included in these major project decisions that impact our traditional lands that we have been stewards of since time immemorial," end quote. Scott Moe says the province plans to continue consultations with agricultural producers and First Nations over the next year. Shovels are expected to hit the dirt in 2025 for Phase 1. And the Premier says the entire project is expected to cost much more than its original 2020 estimate of $4 billion. Alexander Kwan, CBC News, Regina.
The Saskatchewan Teachers Federation is announcing more job action for next week. The STF says it's withdrawing noon-hour supervision next week at several school divisions on Monday and Tuesday, and says further sanctions could impact a provincial basketball tournament next week. City championship games in Regina have already been canceled for some teams. A few high school students we spoke to say the situation could have a big impact.
I feel like it has a very negative impact on athletes' futures, as well as getting into post-secondary schools that they find important to them.
I feel like it's taking away the opportunity to play extracurricular sports, and it's sort of like ruining moments for athletes. They feel like they should be able to have a chance to play their sport,
I think it sucks because they worked hard to get to that spot in the tiers.
The Regina High School Athletics Association says senior basketball teams will still have a chance to compete for a spot in the tournament, and says those teams were decided based on playoff rankings and quarterfinal results. Those games are scheduled to take place tonight. 5 people are in custody in Pelican Narrows as RCMP go head-to-head with gangs. The community remains under a state of emergency. RCMP arrested those involved after gunfire erupted across the northern village over 3 days. Dan Zakreski brings us the story.
This is the photo you'll not see in brochures promoting Pelican Narrows. Sawed-off rifles, drugs, cash, and ammunition. This haul is from a series of RCMP busts this past week. Gangs, guns, and drugs are the reality these days in the northern village. It's been under a state of emergency for more than a year. Leadership say the community needs help. The most recent RCMP release gives a flavor of what's happening. It's an astonishing catalog of mayhem, recorded over 3 days. There's guns fired outdoors, Guns fired inside houses. Guns fired at a man running down a street. And inside the houses, more guns and cocaine, meth, and wads of cash. Karen Bird is chief of the Peter Ballantine Cree Nation. She says there's hope in the community, despite the violence.
So now, looking forward, the Peter Ballantine Cree Nation is developing a comprehensive, holistic public safety plan with the multiple agencies to address this crime, the root causes. So this plan will address not just the symptoms of the crime and violence, but also the root causes.
Bird acknowledged the efforts of the RCMP, praising the force for its immediate impact on the community. She says that even with the recent violence, people are slowly starting to feel safer and more optimistic about the future. Dan Zakreski, CBC News, Saskatoon.
An Edmonton human rights organization has been ordered to pay some of that city's legal fees after a failed lawsuit over encampments. The lawsuit by the Coalition for Justice and Human Rights put the city's approach to encampments in the spotlight. It challenged the constitutionality of the evictions in Edmonton, but the case ultimately failed when a judge ruled the coalition did not have legal standing. The city then sought $25,000 from the nonprofit to recoup some of the more than $42,000 it spent fighting the suit. A judge has now ordered the coalition to pay about $11,000 toward that. A Court of King's Bench justice ruled that the challenge, although unsuccessful, was in the public interest and could have served as a test case for the city's encampment policies. Dozens of encampment sweeps have been carried out since the lawsuit was scrapped. Sask Energy has launched a program that will give rebates to new home buyers for building energy-efficient homes. The Homes Beyond Code program will give home buyers up to $9,000 and home builders $800 for constructing new homes above Tier 2 of the National Building Code. One Saskatoon MLA says the initiative aligns with the province's climate change strategy.
The Homes Beyond Code program aligns with Saskatchewan's growth plan for 2020-2030, aimed at building a better quality of life for everyone in Saskatchewan, specifically by promoting energy efficiency and reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the residential sector.
The rebate for the builder is to help offset costs associated with getting the EnerGuide label for the home. And the rebate for the buyer creates an incentive to choose a home built to a tier higher than the minimum standard required by code. Tier 2 is the minimum standard. Now, Tier 3, where rebates start, is 11% better. Tier 4 is 33% better, and Tier 5 is 67% better than the minimum standard.
The organization has set aside $800,000 for the program. Applications are now open and available on Sask Energy's website. Well, heat is one of the most common industrial byproducts. Now a green technology company is training its sites on capturing and harnessing that wasted energy for actual heating. Emily Chung reports.
Winters are cold in our national capital, and for one developer, the steam from this plant is precious heat being thrown away.
How can we harness that and bring it here? It's silly to be dissipating that to the atmosphere and burning gas or something to make heat.
The plant burns natural gas to heat water, to make paper for tissues and paper towels.
We are constantly seeking for opportunities to reduce our energy consumption and reuse the energy from our process. So when ZB knocked at our door, this was perfectly in line.
Just behind him is the tank where it all begins. Heat from the wastewater is extracted in this shed. And then
we collect it and bring it back here to the plant and redistribute it to the buildings, that it's capable of delivering enough heat for 4 million square feet.
It's all nearby. Hot water from Kruger goes to ZB, then that's piped to nearby buildings in Ottawa and Gatineau, including this apartment.
The system is very responsive and very quiet. And in terms of cost, I'm paying about the same cost for heating and cooling than I was paying for at my old apartment.
He loves the idea of using waste heat, and also because it's using local resources.
There's all kinds of energy available in the community. There's waste heat from industry, heat coming off big data centers. There's even warm water in our sewage.
Sewage is a plentiful resource to tap into, and underground here in Toronto, one company wants to heat an entire hospital with it.
We're tapping into the sewer. We're going to be turning on these heat pumps, and this will save the hospital money. Right now, we've got it projected at about $685,000 a year.
Back in Gatineau, ZB has plans to expand. And as communities look for ways to decarbonize buildings and fight climate change, more are warming up to the idea of using what they'd normally waste. Emily Chung, CBC News, Toronto.
Saskatoon is mourning the loss of one of its most prolific and influential philanthropists. Les Dubé died on Wednesday at the age of 91. For decades, he and his wife Irene have given millions of dollars to hospitals, food banks, and various other charities. Dubé was born in Wynyard in 1933. He started building his empire with a fruit and vegetable distribution business, and his success grew from there.
He would want to be remembered for what he did with the success. And he was on a mission. I said it inside the family many times. I feel like he felt like he owed the planet something. He wanted our city to be better, our province to be better, our country to be better. And he had a role to play in that, and he did it in his own unique way.
The Les and Irene Dubé Urology Center of Health at St. Paul's Hospital was named after them, as was the Dubé Center for Mental Health, which is at the it is a 71-bed facility that opened its doors in 2010. Saskatoon Mayor Charlie Clark says Dubé's contributions to health and mental health have had a tremendous impact on the community. Well, a nice day for a game of spike ball outside today in Saskatoon. And you don't need too many layers either. Some people brave enough to head out in shorts, in fact. Thankfully, nothing flew away in those strong winds we saw. Weather specialist Riley Lachuk will tell us if those winds will stick around for the weekend when we come back. At least 3 people have died in western Ohio after suspected tornadoes ripped through the state last night.
Oh my God. Oh no.
Dozens of people were injured, and police say more bodies could be found in the wreckage. Many homes and buildings were damaged, and power was knocked out for thousands. Funnel clouds were also spotted in eastern Indiana. About 40 people were reported injured. The storms were part of a huge system that stretched from Texas to Pennsylvania and put more than 45 million people under threat of severe weather.
This weather update is brought to you by Mercedes-Benz Regina, proud member of the Capital Automotive Group.
Well, thankfully, no severe weather like that in our province, but boy, it was windy for many of us today. And as you can see there on our tower cam in Regina, the sun came out today, and weather specialist Riley Lachuk joins us now for a look at that forecast. Nice to finally see that sun come out, Riley.
Yeah, nice to see the sun, which, you know, is pretty nice because, shorts weather. We do like that, too. But the story of the day, definitely the winds. So as forecast, snow through parts of northeastern Saskatchewan, tapering off as we got through the day today, but we did see a sun-cloud mix and very windy conditions through south and central parts of the province. Here's a look at peak wind gusts from this afternoon. Now, keep in mind, these are peak wind gusts from Environment Canada's readings at the top of the clock. So yes, we may have seen some stronger gusts through the day, but close to 80 kilometer, 70 kilometer an hour gusts through northern parts of the province. Regina getting a 61 kilometer an hour gust this afternoon, and even some 40s and 50s through the rest of southern Saskatchewan. And yeah, we will start to see the winds die down as we get through into the evening tonight. So as we start Saturday at about midnight here, I've stopped. You can see northwest winds tapering off a little bit, but as we start Saturday, by the time we get to about noon, starting to pick up again into that northwest 20, gusting 40 for the Regina area, and really dying off to more calm conditions as we get through the rest of Saturday and into Sunday. So an end in sight to the winds. Not much in the way of precipitation yet to come, but a chance that we could see through central and northern Saskatchewan especially. Some stray flurries or some scattered flurries as we head through the overnight period tonight into the morning on Saturday. Even a hint we could see some of that even as far south as Saskatoon, but mainly centered to northern parts of the province. As we get through the evening tomorrow, more clearing, so a sunnier afternoon tomorrow for much of the province. Mix of sun and clouds as we get through Sunday, but a mainly sunny sky for southern parts of the province. So, yeah, we're in for a much brighter weekend and a much brighter few days ahead than we definitely have seen in the last few days. So, in terms of forecast snowfall to come, really just a trace yet with some of those stray flurries through northeastern parts of the province. Right now sitting at 10 in Maple Creek, which got to 12 degrees this afternoon. So, yeah, still some warmth to be had in parts of southwestern Saskatchewan. Most of the rest of the province, though, at or above seasonal for this time of the year. So Saskatoon at 3 at the moment, Regina sitting at 4 degrees. Tomorrow getting up at around the freezing mark. Again, Maple Creek looking at a high of 8 for the afternoon tomorrow. And a bit colder air through northern Saskatchewan. This will start to sink down a little bit as we get into the next few days. Moosomin and Yorkton both looking at -3s. Estevan getting up to a mainly sunny 1 degree tomorrow afternoon. So for Regina, we're looking at 2 degrees for both Saturday and Sunday, jumping up to 9 though by the time we head to Monday. And then some colder air ushers in behind that. Slim chance of flurries for Thursday, -7 on the way for Thursday into Saskatoon. Temperatures around freezing as we get through Saturday and Sunday. 4 degrees on Monday. Good chance of some flurries through Wednesday. And Ethan, temperatures dipping a little bit by the time we get to the end of next week. But, you know, I think a good trade-off is much sunnier conditions hanging around for a few days yet.
Yeah, definitely the luck of the Irish playing into
exactly.
a nice weekend here, I think. Thanks,
Yeah,
Riley.
for sure. You're welcome.
So not too tight that you will give yourself a headache.
Well, a hotel in Wales is taking holiday accommodations to a whole new level. The Deep Sleep Hotel lies in an abandoned slate mine more than 400 meters underground. So, along with a zip line, narrow passages, and a terrifying catwalk, it also offers a look at history. To maintain the Spartan motif, hotel guests get dinner in a sealed package, and not surprisingly, alcohol, it's prohibited. We'll be back after the break. More than 20 Palestinians are thought to have been killed in another eruption of violence near an aid distribution area in northern Gaza. The Israeli military says Palestinian gunmen opened fire and none of its forces fired at the crowd or convoy. The military says the first of 2 ships has delivered much-needed aid to Gaza. About 200 tons of food and water have been unloaded onto trucks to help alleviate the humanitarian crisis. It's the first aid vessel to reach the area, and a second one is ready to depart. The UN estimates almost 600,000 people in Gaza are on the brink of starvation. And in Tel Aviv today, hundreds of demonstrators gathered outside the latest Israeli war cabinet meeting, calling for the release of the remaining hostages being held by Hamas. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu rejected the militant group's latest ceasefire proposal. The plan called for dozens of Israeli hostages to be freed in return for hundreds of Palestinians held in Israeli jails. Israel agreed to send a delegation to Qatar to continue talks. Well, a major turning point today in an election interference case against Donald Trump in Georgia. A U.S. judge has ruled the lead prosecutor can remain on the case, but imposed one condition. CBC's Richard Madden has the latest from Washington.
Well, this long-awaited decision by Judge Scott McAfee said District Attorney Fani Willis can stay on the case, but he also gave a blunt ultimatum. If she stays, her former romantic partner she hired to lead it, lawyer Nathan Wade, cannot. The judge said their relationship showed, and I'm quoting here, a tremendous lapse in judgment, but added there wasn't enough evidence to suggest a conflict of interest or the grounds to toss the case out entirely. He wrote, dismissal of the indictment is not the appropriate remedy to adequately dissipate the financial cloud of impropriety and potential untruthfulness found here. Now, this decision comes after 2 months of high drama inside that Georgia courtroom when one of Donald Trump's lawyers accused Willis of financially benefiting from the case by hiring her romantic subordinate, Nathan Wade. The pair took to the stand and were grilled on their relationship by Trump's lawyers on national TV. The pair admitted they once dated and took lavish vacations together, but say they did nothing wrong. But in this ruling, the judge said the appearance of a relationship justifies one of them has to go, saying Special Assistant District Attorney Wade can withdraw, allowing the district attorney, the defendants, and the public to move forward without his presence or remuneration, distracting from and potentially compromising the merits of this case. So this is a partial victory for Fani Willis, although her credibility may have taken a hit, but it's a bigger legal setback for Donald Trump and the election interference case against him. His lawyers are looking for ways to delay or dismiss the criminal case altogether, and the judge's ruling means it will continue, albeit without one of the key prosecutors. For now, the proposed trial date is set for August, so today's ruling leaves open the possibility that Donald Trump's criminal trial on attempting to overturn the last election could begin before this next one in November. Richard Madden, CBC News, Washington.
And Riley's back with one last look at our forecast.
Thanks, Ethan. Expect winds to die down across Saskatchewan as we head through the evening tonight. So by midnight, Regina at -5 overnight. Still northwest winds gusting to 40, but we get some of that clearing still. So partly cloudy sky overnight tonight into the morning. Mainly sunny with a northwest wind at 10. So yes, dying down as we get through the overnight hours. -3 first thing in the morning for Saskatoon. North winds at 20 overnight with a mainly cloudy sky. We don't start to see a little bit of clearing through the Saskatoon and central parts of Saskatchewan until we start to get into the day tomorrow. So -8 first thing in the morning. Northwest winds at 20. And the story tomorrow, Ethan, for southern Saskatchewan at least, looking at sunny breaks for much of the southern part of the
Yeah,
province.
I'll take it. All right,
Same.
sounds good. Thanks, Riley.
No problem.
And before we leave you, a 19-year-old from Regina is gearing up for a big competition across the pond. Mariel Boucher has been Irish dancing since she was 5, and now she's hoping to win a world championship at the end of the month in Scotland.
Irish dance is a bit different than other styles of dance because it's a lot focused more on the legs than the upper arms. So you would notice me dancing, I've got my upper body completely still and it's just the legs. We've got a soft shoe style that is pretty graceful and elegant, a little similar to ballet with lots of jumps. And then there's a hard shoe style that's pretty similar to tap, where you're pounding out lots of really intricate rhythms with some noise-making shoes. Everything that you do is choreographed to fit to a particular tune, and you have to be right on the beat for it to make sense. Really, I love all the tricks and the athleticism really more than anything. It's really fun to just dance. I've been dancing for 14 years, but I've only been competing for about 10 now. And you start in the very first level of beginner, and then you have to win your way all the way up into championships, which I've been very grateful to have done. And just recently, we had our world qualifying competition called the Irrigation in November, where top 5 plus a certain percentage qualify for world championships. And I was fortunate enough to place high enough. A lot of hard work, years and years of just dedication and never giving up. I think if you get some setbacks, it's really hard to keep going, but if you stick with it, then you can see the progress. I'm just most excited for the opportunity. It's really not that many dancers who ever qualify for Worlds, and the fact that I get to go and I get to be on that stage is really something special.
And we wish Mariel all the best at that competition, and happy St. Patrick's Day as well. That's it for us this week. We'll see you on Monday at 6 with all your news and weather. Have a great weekend.